What's up, guys? I'm back here. This topic this week's going to be suited connectors, which is a hand like this. 9, 10 of diamonds. Can't even see the 9, sorry. It's self-explanatory. Suited connectors just mean the same suits, a diamond, 2 diamonds, 2 clubs, 2 spades, whatever. And connected means there's like a good chance of a straight, which means they're within range. At least within, if you subtract the 2 cards, they got to be within at least 4. Technically, 9 and 5 are technically connected. But 9-5 suited is generally not a good playing hand. The most I would say go with suited connectors is either exactly consecutive like this, 9-10, very strong hand, or say these were suited. A suited one gapper, that's called, where there's one in between. 7-9 suited is a good hand too, or 8-10, 6-8, 5-7 suited. I wouldn't, the suited connectors realm I think kind of becomes unbeneficial, or this strategy, if you start playing a suited 2 gapper or as far of a disconnect as it can be. A 2 gapper would be 9-6, and a 3 gapper technically would be 9-5. 9-5, 9-6, 10-7. Those aren't super appealing hands, so not bad. You could play that, but generally the way to maximize playing suited connectors is no gap at all or 1 gap at most, and of course they're suited. So I'm going to give you the 2 main benefits as to why to play these hands and why they're good and why I certainly play them. And you don't necessarily need to be a completely loose player to play this hand. I'll explain the main reason why I play this, and it's very efficient. It's a hand that wins very often. You don't have to be a loose player to be playing these low cards. Most people think if you're tight, you're only going to be going on premium hands. Ace Jack, or King 10, King Jack, whatever, good hands like that. You wouldn't think a hand like this, with 10 high pre-flop is going to get you anywhere. But I'm willing to call off I'm willing to put in a decent amount of chips. If it's a small raise, I'll usually call with a hand like this. There's just a lot of possibilities and directions this can go, especially 9-10 suited. It's actually my favorite hand in Texas Hold'em. Besides, obviously you want premium hand. You guys, hopefully you know what I mean. Obviously, I'd have pocket aces every time if I could. That'd be cool. That's my favorite hand. But just in terms of the hand that I think that everybody overlooks, that's very powerful. 9-10 suited is my favorite. The first reason suited connectors are worth playing to me, and I'm just going to kind of give you guys a case. If you want to play them, you don't have to, but I'm just going to tell you, the possibilities and the benefits you get from playing them, and you guys can kind of determine for yourself. Number one, it creates kind of a loose table image. I prefer to have a loose table image, and I try to play a little loose because there's nothing worse than, I like to bluff as well. So bluffing when you're a loose player, those are kind of contradictory. They don't really go hand in hand, because if people know I'm a loose player, which the definition means I kind of bluff a lot, or I'll call a bet where my odds aren't the best, or I'll put in amount of chips that like I said, it could be bluffing. A loose player just means you'll kind of go after your cards or try and take the pots down, as opposed to a tight player who will only put chips in when they have a good hand. But I like the image of a loose player, because as bad as it is, not as bad as it is, but like I said, I can't always bluff, especially after 50 hands in the tournament. People kind of start picking up that I'm a loose player. I'll show hands like this and showdown, and I might start getting the table image that I'm a loose player. So it's going to be harder for me to bluff as the game goes on. But the trade-off for that, which I think is totally worth it, there's nothing worse in Texas. No, there are worse things. I don't want to be completely wrong there, but nothing. Or it's no fun. It's unfortunate when you finally get a good hand. You finally make a full hand. Where I'm sitting here with 9-10 of diamonds, and I maybe hit a straight. I flop an open-ended straight, and then on a turn I get my hand, and I make my straight. There's no flush possible. My hand's almost like the nuts. There's nothing worse than after the river. I know my hand's best when I bet and I can't get called. When you don't get, that's called getting paid off, or in Texas Hold'em. When I make a river bet, knowing I have the best hand, or assuming so, most of the time you'll be sure if you're making a value bet. It's a bet I wanted to call, and the point of when you get the table image as a loose player, the player across the table who I'm making that bet against will, not more often than not, but if he starts seeing me flipping up hands and bluffing at pots, he could very well think this is a bluff as well. So it allows me to kind of go into the range of I can execute tons of bluffs or not bluffs, bets that look like bluffs. If you guys don't know what a value bet is, say let's say there's 130 in the pot, okay? Move that back a little so you guys can see it. There's 130 in the pot. Generally on a river bet, if I want somebody to call, the average river bet is maybe 40 to 60% of the pot. You don't want to if you want somebody to call your hand, generally you wouldn't go all in, unless they have like the nuts, they're not going to call you, and you don't want to just put in like 15 chips, 15 of 130, that's like 10%. You don't want they'll probably call you, but you want to try and bet as much as you possibly can while still getting them to call. But the point, if I make my hand like this hand I said, a lot of times you can make your hand look like a bluff, or my bet look like a bluff. If I threw in this bet, somebody might interpret it as a bluff. That's 120. I almost bet the pot. Pot was 130. That's where these hands come when you actually make your hand, not just with suited connectors. When you make any hand, creating a loose table image in general with any hand, no matter whatever you're playing, whether it be 2-3 suited or 9-10 or whatever, if you're bluffing at pots, if you get the loose table image, it allows you to make plays like this. And I can't tell you the amount of times where, if you guys don't know already, like I said, the average river bet, where somebody who looks like they want to be called is about 40 to 60% of the pot. The average bluff bet, someone will try and bet almost the pot, or exactly the pot, or a little bit over the pot. It's usually about 90 to 120% of the pot. So I love doing this because this looks like a bluff. Just statistically, most people will do that. People try and, when they're bluffing, they try and bet the pot. So they don't want they don't want somebody to call. That's a lot of chips to commit. So they're putting in a lot. But I love putting in this amount because it looks like a bluff, but really I have the nuts. And it allows me to do that. When you're a loose player, you're going to get called because people know you're loose. People know you can bluff. When you throw in a bet that looks like a bluff, you add all those together. Even if it only works 1 out of 5 times, it's a huge payday. When you bet the pot like that. I said there was 600 in here, and the average starting stack was like 1,000. There's 6 people. If I make a pot size bet like 550, and I get called, I have a huge chip stack already. So it opens the door. That's not even. I haven't really gotten to the good part. I kind of, not off topic, but I hope you understood the point of that. Again, if you're a loose player, people can see me bluff. If I throw in a bet that looks like a bluff, I'm very, very likely to get called. But it looks like a bluff, but it's not a bluff. Like I said, I would throw this in when I have like the nut, and I have 9-10, and the flop is 6-7-8, and there's no flush possible. And the last 2 cards are like 2-3. Something like that, when I have the best possible hand, and I would make it look like a bluff, and I get paid. You can get paid off very often with this strategy. So that's the first benefit to playing suited connectors, and believe it or not even the number one reason to play them. Okay, the second reason to play suited connectors, and the reason I do, is the math statistically is actually in your favor in a lot of scenarios. Obviously, suited connectors, you understand the suited part can get you a flush. 3 diamonds would get me a flush. The connected part, still a straight possibility, which is, these are as good as any 2 cards in the as a starting hand, except for they're not the highest. There's 3 things I break down when to getting cards. Number 1 is that you want high cards, right? Like 3 things you want in your pocket hand. You want high cards, so like Ace King is obviously a good hand. Number 2 is you want them connected. I think having the possibility of a straight is a very dangerous hand. And a straight is obviously a well-ranked hand in Texas Hold'em, and will win you the pot a lot. And then the third thing to look for is if they're suited. So suited connectors take the second and third most important things. Obviously, having the highest cards are usually the best. I'm gonna cut this here because I got a phone call. So yeah, suited and connected cards, a very powerful combination. That'll give me the second reason that I play suited connectors. It's a very good combination of cards, but one thing that people just don't think about when they're playing suited cards, people in the pot against me, generally they're going to have a strong hand. Generally, they might have suited connectors as well, but the other 8 out of 10 times, if you're playing with friend groups, they might kind of be calling with anything, if it's anything decent. They'll even decent, like 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10 players, your people that play once a month, like I said, some of my college friends, something like that. Your 4 out of 10s, 5 out of 10s will still fold bad hands like Queen 2, Jack 2, 10-3, 10-4, 9-4, 9-3, 9-5, stuff like that. So, and the people you're playing the hand against will have a hand like if they're going to raise or something, assuming they're not bluffing or whatever, if they're going to put in a min raise, which I always call min raises almost all the time with suited connectors, unless I know the guy's super tight and he might have like a high pocket pair or something like that. If he min raises, people who are going to stay in the pot who call a raise are going to have a good hand. And in their terms of good hand, usually people who don't play suited connectors, a lot of people don't. I go a lot further than most people with them. Um, but the people who call raises and will raise are people with like ace jack, ace queen, pocket jacks, pocket queens. I'm not like I said. Do not go all in if some guys five bet you. If you were kind of bluffing, do not call it. I'm not. It's not that strong of a hand. The higher cards are still gonna have you dominated most of the time. But what that does is, although you might not think that that guy has ace king, that guy has king jack, and that guy has ten jack, or no, let's say queen jack, and I'm sitting here with this hand. Let's just say 9-10. 9-10 is just below the limit that I think people play. I think people play almost all kinds of aces, kings, queens, and jacks. Really, obviously they play almost every pocket pair, but if you have an ace, king, queen, or jack with a decent kicker, most people will play it. Anything like Jack 7 or better, people usually play, and maybe we'll even call a small raise with if it's like Jack 8 suited or something. That's kind of technically suited connectors, but the main suited connectors that I stick with and why I think that are best are, I would say, don't go any lower than like 4 or 5 suited, because it allows for all sorts of. I think the best hand to have, like I said, is one of my favorite hands, 9-10. I would say actually the best range is maybe like 7-8 or even 8-9 suited. I like 9-10 because one out of like every maybe 20 hands, sometimes a pair of tens might be the top pair on the board, especially if you're heads up. If someone raises the pot and you call a raise, you're not sure about your hand. Flop comes 2-5-10. That's a very realistic flop. Only one card. You have the highest pair. That's where you can bet and take it down from somebody with ace king, especially if you're first to bet. Or I mean, if he's first to bet and you call, he knows you. If he continuation bet with ace king, threw in like 30% of the pot continuation bet, he might not. You call him, he's not going to bet next time, and you can lead out. Hopefully, it's no ace or king next time, or queen, or some scare card, over your 10. But a lot of times, a 9 or a 10 can be the highest card, the highest pair on the board. That's not the best reason to play this hand. Like I said, 9-10's good. It's still not terribly low cards. But the other reason is, like I said, when you're playing people with ace king, ace queen, king jack, pocket jack, say somebody has, I don't know. They're taking up. It might not seem like a lot. There's 52 cards in the deck. You have 2 of them. There's 50 unknown cards that you haven't seen yet without the flop. He's taking away the high cards. Your ace king is not going to be part of your hand. He's not holding any of your cards that you really need to make your hand. Let's say I'm holding 7-8 just for this situation. The ace queen guy is not disrupting you. The king jack guy is not disrupting you. The pocket twos guy is not disrupting you. What I'm getting at is 7-8 is like the middle of the road where people will fold hands that are super bad, like 2-6, 2-5, 2 jack, 2 queen, 3 queen, jack 4, jack 3, jack 2, king 2. I'm just trying to give you a bunch of examples, but you see what cards they're folding. They're folding an extreme high and an extreme low. Either that, or they're folding two extreme lows, like 2-4 offsuit, 2-3 offsuit. Not a very good playing hand. They're folding that, and then people are playing that you're against are playing the extreme highs, which is completely normal. But what that does is when people are folding those cards, he folded 4 cards these 2 guys folded 4 cards that aren't relevant to helping your hand. No 9s, they're sad 7-8, no 7s, no 8s, not even, since we're trying to make a straight with this hand as well. They probably wouldn't fold something around a 9 or a 6, might also not be in their folding range either, unless it's 9-2, 8-2. Those are possible to fold. But the 2 extremes, and like I said, the guys you're playing against are not holding cards that are going to disrupt your chances of landing, 2 pair or, getting your straight. So this hand is so much stronger because the guys who are in the pot and the guys who have folded, they've usually eliminated maybe, a sixth of the deck of cards that you don't need. Occasionally, the guy might be holding cards you need. He might be holding like 8-2 offsuit and could fold. Or, he might be folding like 2 clubs. You'll never know that. You can never put somebody out of suit. But